Welcome back to Mountaineer Rants. I'm Terry. This is Paul. We're here to tell you a preview about the Cincinnati, West Virginia game coming up here this Saturday on the 18th. It's at 2:30, and it's available on ESPN Plus. We didn't make a major network this week, so hopefully...
Crowding about that a little bit. Maybe had we beaten Oklahoma, we would have been a primetime game. There's not a lot of great football on this weekend.
It's true.
The following weekend is Rivals Week, so there's going to be a lot of good clashes then, and that's also the Thanksgiving weekend. But this weekend, it's kind of dull. We're in the middle of the day.
We're at 2:30, which is better than 7 o'clock at night, in my opinion, anyway. But
the game is going to feature a tribute to Coach Don Nehlen,
right.
And we want to talk about him in a little bit. But let's first talk about Cincinnati. Cincinnati is 3-7 overall.
They won their first 2 games, and then they lost 7 straight.
Yeah.
But then they won last week at Houston, place where we couldn't. So isn't that interesting?
Their coach was Ficknell, who had them playing for the national title just a couple of years ago.
Anyway.
And he's now gone to Wisconsin. They've got
Scott
Satterfield, who came up from Louisville.
He was at Appalachia State, and in 2019 he went to Louisville. And then he went from Louisville
to Cincinnati. He had a pretty average record at Louisville.
He didn't do so well at Louisville. He did well at Appalachia State.
And he's got a pretty average offense coming back. I don't have my notes on him, but they tout a couple of defensive players. Let me say this. I watched a game of them against Pitt early in the season. Now, I know Pitt's not very good this season, but I was impressed with the way Cincinnati played Pitt. And Cincinnati beat Pittsburgh 27-21 in Pittsburgh. They were fast. They were faster than Pitt. Their defensive secondary would cover pretty close, but they would hit the receiver right after the ball would arrive. And I thought the Pitt quarterback would put it on the money, but they would knock it out of their hands and turn pretty good passes into incompletions. And then just about the time Pitt was convinced that they were going to pass, they'd run up the middle and make them look silly. I thought they looked pretty good in that game, and I was impressed with them. But since they're 3-7 overall.
Well, but on that note, you say that 3-7. I do understand it, but let's look at some of this. We would agree they did. They played Oklahoma. They played Oklahoma State. They played Pitt like we did. They played Iowa State, arguably a better team. So look at some of these numbers of theirs. Of course, their points per game, they average scoring 25, but they average giving up 26. That's where their problem is. But if you look at their offense, 220 yards per game, they average passing the ball, and 223 yards a game, they average rushing the ball. That's a pretty balanced offense.
To be a pretty good offense. Now, remember, they played some weak sisters.
They did early on, yes.
Their first game was against the Colonels of Eastern Kentucky, and they won 66-13. The Colonels are only 4-6 in the Sun Conference. Of course, West Virginia didn't play them, so it's not a common opponent. They beat Pitt 27-21. Pitt, of course, is just 2-8 in the ACC. They're not very good. They're pretty much a cupcake this year. West Virginia beat Pitt 17-6. They beat them 27-21. Looked like the same level team at that point. They went on to play Miami of Ohio and lost in overtime 31-24. Miami of Ohio is in the Mid-American Conference. They're 8-2 in the Mid-American Conference. I don't know enough about them to say they're no good. They're not really a cupcake, so there's nothing to be upset about. Then they played Oklahoma. They lost to Oklahoma 20-6. Well, Oklahoma's a top-ranked team. They're 8-2. They beat the hell out of us 59-20. And they but Cincinnati hung around with them.
They did have it at home, which was helpful probably, but Cincinnati did play that game very strong against Oklahoma.
Right. They then played BYU, and they lost to BYU 35-27. Now, BYU is 5-5. They're not very good. We beat them 37-7. So they lost 37-27. We're looking a little bit like the better team if you're using scores. They went on to play Iowa State after that and lost 30-10. Iowa State 6-4. They're not a bad team. West Virginia hasn't played them, and maybe we're lucky not to. Don't know. After that, they played and lost to Baylor. Baylor's 3-7, not looking good this year. They played them at home, and they lost 32-29. Again, it's a close game, but they didn't put a lot of offense up. We'll play Baylor in 2 weeks. We'll find out. Then they played Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State 7-3, a ranked team. They lost 45-13.
And that was at Oklahoma State too. Well, Oklahoma State beat us. Put more
Oklahoma
points
State
in
beat us
Morgantown.
48-34, beat them 45-13 again. Next was UCF, Central Florida. They lost to Central Florida, a 5-5 team, 28-26, a close loss. If you recall, West Virginia beat Central Florida 41-28, handled them rather handily. And then the other common opponent is their last game, which Houston. Houston's a 4-6 team. They beat Houston, so they beat three teams. They beat Pittsburgh, a 2-8 team. They beat Eastern Kentucky, a 4-6 team, and they beat Houston, a 4-6 team. They won 24-14, but we let Houston score 41 points on us when we lost 41-39 on the last second Hail Mary.
This team's going to come right at you. They got this kid Kiner, number 21, their running back, and he's going to carry the ball a lot. He's going to run at us. They're going to dare us to stop him. This is where the game's going to be won and lost, just straight up, flat out. If our defensive line gets handled like they did against Oklahoma, we're in for a long day. And their quarterback, this kid Jones, number 5, Emory Jones, is not a bad quarterback. He can run. He can throw the ball. And they've even put their backup in, this guy named Littenberg, I believe. He's played a little bit the last couple weeks, not much. But they're going to come at us running the football. And if they can push us off the ground, off the line of scrimmage and create holes, we might have a tough one.
Well, they, like you say in the stats, they're kind of balanced in their rushing and in their passing. What I saw in the Pitt game was they were fast.
Yeah.
I don't know if we played a team this fast this year, but if they want to be physical, I give the edge to us, our lines and their lines. If it's about speed, don't know. It's hard to judge how fast you are against another team when you just see them play others because you don't know how fast the others are.
And I did point out they beat Houston, but understand they've been playing Houston every year. They both came from that same conference, so it might have helped a little bit to know that it's a common opponent you played every year as compared to us playing them for the first time.
And if you want to dig down a little further, Houston only scored 14 points on it, but Houston turned the ball over 3 times in that game. And that's always helpful. If you recall, they didn't turn the ball over to us at all in the game we played. Houston we had Houston's best game they played, and they beat us, and we had Oklahoma's best game they played. And that's how that's why we played the game.
You could even make the case we might have caught Oklahoma State at the best game too, because we saw if you saw they went down to Central Florida where we were just played 2 weeks ago, and they got boat raced 45-3. Central Florida beat Oklahoma State. So college football's crazy.
Yeah, Oklahoma State lost to Georgia Southern, and then lost to South Alabama, and then lost to Central Florida.
Lost to Central Florida.
So they had off weeks too. They sure didn't when they played us.
But they beat us. They beat Oklahoma. They beat Kansas State. So it's all over the place.
Even the Oklahoma State game, though, we had the lead going in.
We played three quarters. We played a fourth quarter. We could have won that game.
And we had the fumbled ball on the kick, and then I don't want to relive that.
Couple other people. Jones and Kiner, be careful. They got 2 receivers you'll be watching out for. Number 8 is Henderson. 0 is Smith. They're 2 main guys. Then they like to throw to this tight end Mateer too. I think it's how I'm saying that right. So the other thing caught me when I started reading about and looking at them is their tackles on the defense. They've got 5 guys between 40 to 60 tackles. So it's not like 1 or 2. Some of these, you got 2 of them that got more than the others, but some of these teams you'll see 2 or 3 guys got a whole lot more than anybody else. They got 5 guys with a lot of tackles. That tells me they swarm to the ball, they run after the ball, and they make plays. But their big guy on defense is Corleone. I don't think he's Al Pacino or anything. I don't think that. Number 2, the defensive lineman.
He'll make you tackle. You can't refuse.
Yeah. He's going to come after the court. He's big, strong. He'll probably be in the NFL. And he's hard to move. He's hard to get out of the way, and he will put pressure on the quarterback. And
they're not going to be as big as we are. They're going to be quick. They're going to be a swarming defense. They're going to be fast receivers. One of the receivers only 5'7", transfer in from out of state. I don't think they're going to beat us up with a passing attack. I think we're going to have to blow this game.
I kind of tend to agree, but a couple of mistakes, a couple of stupid things.
It can be
and
done.
This team is not. We're not so much better like Brigham Young. I thought we were so much better than BYU. We could have made a few mistakes and still won that game. This one, we're going to have to play our game, and I think we will. I think we'd have to blow it to lose it, but you don't ever know what's going to happen, do you? Oklahoma State 3. Central Florida 45. That's all I'll say. Look at that.
I'm not even going to predict it because this is a game we should win. Everybody says we should win it. I don't know what team's going to show up. I thought our defense was awful last week.
Yeah.
If we're that bad this week, there's no injuries as an excuse, but if we're that bad this week, we could lose the game. I don't think so.
24. West Virginia 38, Cincinnati 24.
My instincts are that we should handle Cincinnati very easily. They won't score many points. If they do, it'll be in the fourth quarter. And we should be able to run all over them. I'm not going to big score anymore. I'm too optimistic. But we should win this game for one of the finest football coaches, one of several fine coaches that have come through West Virginia.
Yeah.
We're lucky enough to have Hall of Fame coaches that have been through Morgantown. Yeah. Bobby Bowden's in the Hall of Fame with national championships, and Don Eugene Nehlen.
Or is it Nehlen?
Well, I've called him Nehlen all my life.
I've called
Maybe
him
it should be pronounced
years,
Nehlen, but I never did. And I met him once in Richmond in a restaurant, but he never corrected me. So whatever.
Hey, I've got a connection to the man. My first year at WVU as a freshman was 1980. And so I got to see the first, and I remember the TV broadcast said they hired this guy Don Nehlen from Michigan. I'm like, who is this guy? Of course, it wasn't like today. We got social media and everybody knows everybody out there. We're like, who is this guy? And boy, I think it was a pretty good hire. What do you think?
Well, and we dismissed him. We lived a little while in Canton, Ohio, which was apparently just after, because Nehlen was a multisports athlete at Canton Lincoln High School. After he was gone, I went to Canton Lehman High School. They were kind of rivals at the time, but the big dog in Canton, Ohio in high school was Canton McKinley. Nehlen, correct me if you want.
Go ahead and say it however.
He went on to become the head coach at Canton South High School and then Canton McKinley High School. And Canton McKinley was just way better than Lehman or Lincoln. And would regularly go and challenge for the high school championship, which was normally had to go through Massillon, Ohio.
Yeah, that was the
very big football area, all of which fed into Ohio State. And if it didn't go to Ohio State, it went to Michigan. Well, Nehlen was the
Notre Dame.
Yeah. Nehlen was the head coach at the high schools of Canton McKinley, and then he became an assistant at the University of Cincinnati.
Isn't that interesting? The team we're playing this Saturday.
After that, he went and he was coach at Bowling Green and an assistant in Michigan. He had a number. He was a quarterbacks coach at the University of Michigan under Bo Schembechler, the legendary Bo Schembechler, from 77 to 79. He was the head coach then in West Virginia starting in December of 79. He replaced Frank Signetti, who had just, Frank had followed Bobby Bowden.
Right.
Who went on to Florida State and won national championships. Frank had 4 losing seasons and then came down with cancer. Nehlen came in and in his first season went 6-6. Yeah, that was in 80. In 81, his quarterback was Oliver Luck, who later became our athletic director, and he went on to have a 9-3 season, and he upset the Florida Gators
in the Peach Bowl in Atlanta.
The Peach Bowl in Atlanta at the end of the year. We were there.
We saw that one.
It was the lock game of the year. Yeah. Everybody, Danny Sheridan, who was a knower of things, predicted that it was a lock game.
He was a big Florida guy.
He was a big Florida suck-up. And the bettors were all betting on them, and except nobody told Nehlen, and we went down and won that game.
So then we come out, and you're finishing 91 because I'm going to jump
what
into 82.
I was just going to say, at the next game.
Oliver Luck leaves, okay? So we get this transfer quarterback in from Penn State, Jeff Hostetler. We said, well, he's got to be pretty good to play to Penn State. And so we're playing Oklahoma in the first game of the season. It wasn't on TV. We had to go to the Coliseum, and it was on a closed circuit broadcast.
Oklahoma was number 9 in the country. Mm-hmm. They hadn't been beaten in a home opener, and they had never been beaten as bad in a home opener.
Barry Switzer was their coach. Yeah. Barry Switzer was the coach.
Don finished winning the lock game of the year in the Peach Bowl, and then opened the next season upsetting Oklahoma, which, by the way, that win alone puts him ahead of the last coach we had, who never did beat Oklahoma.
That's true. That's true.
And that was with Jeff Hostetler. So now that was in '82, and he had things like in '84. He beat Boston College and Doug Flutie, the Heisman Trophy winner. He beat Penn State, which was the first time we'd beaten Penn State since 1955.
29 years. And you know, I was a student, so I was a really big part of this. We loved Nehlen. we were like, all of a sudden it became cool to be a Mountaineer. In fact, he was instrumental in this logo right here. If you don't know that,
he designed the flying W.
He looked at the film and says, "Who are my guys? I can't even tell who are my guys." So he streamlined the uniform and the logo. All of a sudden, it became cool.
It was about the same time that John Denver made popular this song, Country Roads, and a lot of people that were kind of embarrassed to be from West Virginia, you know, Toothless and Chasing Your Sister and all of that kind of stuff. All of a sudden, there was some chest being thrown out, like, yeah, I'm from West Virginia, what of it? And Don Nehlen rode that crest. In '87, he recruited a defensive back by the name of Major Harris because Major wanted to play quarterback.
Yep. He was the only one that said he could play quarterback at the high level college ball.
He could have gone to Penn State, but he would have had to been defensive back. He didn't want to do that.
And he was from Pittsburgh too, and they didn't want to have him as a quarterback.
In '88, the Mountaineers went undefeated in the regular season with Major Harris as the quarterback. And we met Notre Dame in the Fiesta Bowl. Major Harris, unfortunately, got injured on the third play of the game. Yep. Not bad enough to pull him,
hurt his shoulder,
but bad enough for that he wasn't at full capacity, and we lost 34-21 to Notre Dame's national champs. In '93, Nehlen did it again. He had an undefeated season. He won the Big East title. And he went to play the Florida Gators for all the marbles in the Sugar Bowl,
so
we got beat again, 41-7.
The '88 team was really, really talented. The '93 team was good because they had a lot of heart. They were some people said they were overachievers, but they refused to lose. Both of those teams were really special.
'94, the team started 1-4. And people had their knives out, but they rebounded, ended up qualifying for the CarQuest Bowl, and again we lost. We had Bo Schembechler, Don Nehlen, all those old-fashioned guys would have trouble in bowls. Something called the forward pass.
I always had a thing of saying that because they simplified their playbooks and they concentrated on things they did and did them well. If another team got a month to scout that, they didn't throw a lot of wrinkles into when they got to bowl games, and that's why that.
Well, and the inside joke in our house was Don Nehlen loved to run the draw play.
Right. Yes.
As a coach, he was under Bo Schembechler. Right. We used to joke that he got that off of Bo, and we called it he's running the bow again.
It'd be 3rd and 17. And what's he going to do? He's going to run the bow.
And he ran the bow all the time. He would run it over and over. You'd think, well, he's surely not going to run. He ran it again. And he would do it. and surprise. In the Penn State game where we beat them, just before half, he ran the bow, and all of a sudden the running back burst free.
They expected a long Hail Mary. He had 3 guys to the right. He ran the bow to the left, and Andre Johnson went 50-some yards for a touchdown.
So running the bow.
That's Don Nehlen.
The other joke we have is if you've ever been up on Don Nehlen Drive, we think the sign up there that says no
It's a
passing
no
is
pass,
appropriate.
That was what I was going to say. If you go to the game Saturday, go up Don Nehlen Drive, it's a no passing.
It's a no passing. That's not fair to Don. When he had a good quarterback, he passed. In '98, he was loaded with good players too. Mark Bulger, Amos Zaraway, Anthony Beck, Gary Stills, Barrett Green, Solomon Page, John Thornton. They opened with a loss to Ohio State, but they finished the season 8-4. And again went to play Missouri in the Insight Bowl. We lost the bowl. In 2000, we lost to Syracuse towards the end of the season, and Nehlen announced that'd be his final season. Now, in that season, we went to play Ole Miss in the Music City Bowl. Avon Coburn, Brad Lewis was the quarterback. We had a wide receiver named Antonio Brown. Our fullback was Wes Hours.
Yeah. Big giant kid.
Big giant.
We called him. We said he was a guard, and he was playing fullback. He was like 290 pounds. But we said Don's just eliminated all pretense. He just put another lineman back.
He liked physical football, and that's what he did. And we beat the Rebels 49-38. That was against the Manning, by the way.
It was littlest, not the littlest one. There's one at
There's another one at
Eli
Texas.
Payton. It's Eli.
Yeah.
It was Eli played. He was a freshman that year, and came in and threw a bunch of yards, but we ended up winning the game anyway.
He finished his tenure at West Virginia 149, 93, and 4. His 149 victories are the most in school history. He was named in 2002 the Distinguished West Virginian by the West Virginia Broadcasters Association. In 2017, he won the Amos Alonzo Stagg Award given to the group or individual with outstanding in the advancement of the best interests in football. In '88, he was recognized for 3 national coaching awards: the Walter Camp Coach of the Year Award, the Bobby Dodd Coach of the Year Award, and the AFCA Coach of the Year Award. In '93, he was named the Big East Coach of the Year, and in 2005, he was inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame.
And in this Saturday, he's going to be immortalized and put on. And we don't call it the Ring of Fame up there, but in Milan Puskar Stadium, he's going to be on the ring up there, and that's an outstanding thing.
That's what needs to happen. You need to show up for that ball game and support Coach Nehlen. He's coached 15 first-team All-Americans, 82 All-Big East Conference honorees, and 80 future NFL ball players. He really is a blessing for West Virginia. And has raised our expectations now. No,
absolutely.
He's advanced the game some and became a Mountaineer. Unlike some people, he didn't move to another state. He didn't take another job when it was offered. He and his family moved to Morgantown, and he's been living in Chile, even though his lovely wife passed away. But he is a Mountaineer following the game, even in his 80s.
You know, and that's what you say. It makes a good point, because he didn't grow up in West Virginia, but he came to West Virginia and he became a Mountaineer. He just through and through. He blue and gold. And there were multiple people after him to take him away from us. South Carolina was the biggest one early on, and he used to say, he said, I get tired of hearing it all the time. He says it's flattering, but I get tired of all these rumors about me going to all these. He says I'm pretty happy where I'm at, and he stayed there 20 years. And I was like,
tell the story about what he said to the kids when he first came down here.
What are you talking about? About the kid with his feet up,
with his feet on the table? Because when you go into a new program, I mean, obviously you can go in and say we're going to do more discipline and we're going to lift more weights or whatever, but there's a whole lot of, I don't belong to you, I was recruited by the previous coach, I don't like you, I like the...
and he had one kid in his first meeting, and he never named him in the thing, but he was sitting in the towers where they met with his hat over his eyes and his feet off the table. Nehlen kicked his feet off the table, said, "Get your damn feet off the table." And that's impressive, because Nehlen didn't curse much at all.
No.
And then he said to the whole bunch, he says, I don't care who you believe you belong to, you're mine, all mine now. You've become mine. And I was like, and a couple of them said later on, I didn't say it then, but it's like, we knew this was going to be a little bit different with this guy in here now. And Just a leader. And he said many of the things that I've read about him. He talked about how mostly being a college football head coach is mental. He said that was one of the main challenges. But I could go on and on and on because I talk about it.
And we will. We'll cover some more of it after the Cincinnati game. But show up for the Cincinnati game. Pay tribute to Coach Nehlen. He really did a lot for West Virginia and West Virginia football.
Couple little symmetrical things, and then we're done. His first job was an assistant at the University of Cincinnati. His first game as a head coach at WVU, 1980. My first game as a student there against the University of Cincinnati. And this game is going to be on November the 18th, which in 2000, that was his last game on that date in Mountaineer Field against East Carolina. So it's kind of interesting.
So beginning and ending against Cincinnati.
Yeah. So anyway, 38-24. That's on my pick. Let's go Mountaineers.
That's not a bad guess.
Let's see. We'll see you next time. Don't forget to like and subscribe.